Who you walk with shapes where you go. What you think about shapes who you become. Hello, and welcome to the My Father Said podcast, where we discuss all things faith, finance, and family. I'm one of your hosts, Ryan. I'm both a father and a son.
Hey, everybody. I'm Robert. I'm his dad. I'm my father's son.
And today we are talking all about, I guess the best way to say it is mindset and who you surround yourself with and what you think about.
Yeah, the way I like to think about it is your future. We're going to discuss where you're going to be 10 years from now.
Yeah.
And we're going to prove it based off of fact and experience. That wherever you may be, if you're in your car listening to this podcast, or if you're sitting at your home looking at it on YouTube, we're going to tell you where you're going to be 5, 10, 15, 20 years from now. And we haven't even met you, maybe.
Yep.
We're going to tell you.
It's that old adage, show me your friends and I'll show you your future.
That's it, exactly.
That's it. So that's what we're going to talk about. We're going to try and tie that in with faith, finance, and family. But yeah. So let's go ahead and get to it. So obviously one of the scriptures we want to point out is Proverbs 13:20. Whoever walks with the wise becomes wise, but the companion of fools will suffer harm. That's biblical back up to, hey, if you're walking with wise people, you are walking with wise counselors, that's going to rub off on you. And then the same thing, if you're walking with, losers and, idiots and stuff like that, you're going to become a loser and an idiot. Unmotivated. That's a better way of saying it.
Let's use it. Let's not call people, let's not give them those pronouns. All right. Let's give them some other ones here. So no, we were thinking about, some of the hurdles that individuals have to overcome in their lives if they are not satisfied with where they're at. Changes they need to make that they're unaware of that they need to make. Mm-hmm. And very often, more often than not, when we find ourselves settled in a rut, settled in a groove of those individuals who surround us and are basically become our circle, we find that we acclimate ourselves just like them. Mm-hmm. And if they are ambitious, we are ambitious. If they are lazy, we are lazy. Mm-hmm. If all they want to do is live for the weekend, that's pretty much then all you would want to do is live for the weekend, just because they, being who they are and their outlook on life and their internal drive or lack thereof, if that is who you're going to be around, that's who you are going to become. Mm-hmm. So what we have found out is if you want to achieve a goal, an aspiration, whatever it may be, you've got to be very intentional about who you allow in your circle to speak influence into your life. And the scripture you just shared, that bears truth to that. And some of the things that we're going to talk about today bear truth to that. There's a gentleman by the name of Jim Rohn spelled R-O-H-N, if I'm saying his last name correct. But he is attributed with a saying that he says that you are the sum of the 5 people who you most often associate with. And I have used that very often in dealing with people in my church setting. I always tell people your spiritual walk has everything to do with who you find you're most closely aligned with. And I always challenge them to write down the 5 names of the people who they are most closely aligned with. Of course, their spouse being one and whoever the other ones are. And then be truthful right beside each one of their names. Just write down, are they a follower of Christ? Yes or no. Mm-hmm. Nothing in between, just yes or no. And then you will see from there what your spiritual future may look like, just off of that. And in our line of work, what we do here in financial management, it's the same thing. If you want to find out what your financial future is going to look like, and that's what we're going to do for you today out there in podcast world, We are going to share with you what your future is going to look like, even though we don't know who's listening at this moment. We don't know who's watching. But I promise you what we're going to share with you today will have a direct correlation to either your success or your failure financially moving forward.
Yeah. One of the things before we move on, though, you were talking about when you were talking with individuals that go to your church, and you say, write down your 5 closest friends, tell me if they're, believers or not believers, and that's going to influence you. That also comes right out of the Bible. 1 Corinthians 15:33, do not be deceived. Bad company ruins good character. So that's also a biblical principle, outside of the world of finance, outside of the world of family, in your faith as well. Who you surround yourself with is going to influence you.
You're right. Bad company corrupts good character. For some reason, I'm thinking about that girl from New Jersey you dated. But that's another podcast. Hopefully your wife is listening to this one and you can explain that to her afterwards.
I don't think my wife cares or wants to know about ex-girlfriends that I dated.
Okay. All right. Well, start with, when we say you are the sum of the 5 people that you most associate with, here's one reason why that's important to you. The influences they got is because of their behaviors, routines, and choices that those individuals around you tend to make. It becomes normal. It becomes your normal. So basically, in a short statement, their habits rub off on you, and you begin to be like them. If your circle is a group of people who like to exercise, then you're going to become someone who exercises.
Right. If
your group of people is a group of folks who like to sit down on the weekend and choke down cases of beer, you're going to be that person. If you want to get away from the beer guzzlers into the ones who are trying to take care of their body, you have to physically and mentally make a decision to get up from one group and move yourself to the other group.
Right.
So the same financially, if you're wanting to learn about finances and to be successful financially, then you've got to quit hanging out with, and I'm going to explain this, you've got to quit hanging out with broke people. All right. And if you want to become better off financially, I'm trying to avoid the word wealthy because everything's not about money. Right. But if you want to change your financial picture, you've got to change who you are allowing to create your habits. All right. One of the things that I always talk about whenever I'm, like I challenge you and Tim and whoever else, like, hey, what book are you reading right now? What have you read recently? What are you putting in your mind? And I can tell you right now, those who do not put financial knowledge in their mind, if by chance they were to reach a level of financial success, it would be almost impossible for them to remain there simply because they don't have that foundation. So habits rub off. So that's one of the reasons why we want to be very careful about who it is that we allow to be in our circle.
Yeah. And taking it a step farther, not only do those habits rub off and you become that sum, I started this podcast by saying, what you think about dictates who you become. If you're surrounded by individuals who have a certain habit, you're going to start thinking a certain way. That's going to manifest itself in your actions. So, and again, another scripture about that is Proverbs 23:7. For as he thinks in his heart, so he is. So the things that you think about they're gonna manifest themselves, out in your actions, and you're gonna think about your habits. Like we're here at football season. Everybody's thinking about college football or NFL and stuff. That's what you're thinking about, and then when Saturday rolls around, that's what you're doing, right? And so I don't know where I was going with that. But you start to pick up the habits of the people that are around you, but it also, taking it a step farther, you start to dwell on it. It starts to be in your mind. It starts to be in your heart. And it's hard to remove yourself from those situations at times.
It is.
That's all you know.
You know, you and I were talking earlier today before we went on air here. We were discussing a particular group of people and their opinion of another person. Mm-hmm. And I had made mention to you that it's always been my experience with that particular group of people that to them, everything is a conspiracy. And they have, collectively, they have a negative opinion of this other individual. Now, I don't know if that negative opinion is justified or not.
Right.
Me personally, I've never had a bad experience with that individual. And I have been known to bring out the worst in people. So I don't that I don't know what that means, but my point is that beliefs and attitudes spread over. And as I was saying to you, you know, it's great that we are not in a shared space with that group of people. Mm-hmm. Because if we were in a shared space with that group of people, it would invariably happen that eventually those attitudes would seep across.
Right. Yeah.
And the same thing again with our futures when it comes to money. Mm-hmm. If somebody is going to constantly be reminding you that the sky is falling, mm-hmm. Well, it doesn't matter if it's the prettiest September day in the world with not a cloud in the sky and just a pretty blue sky. You're going to look up and you're going to say the sky is falling just because your influences are constantly pumping that thought in your mind.
Yeah.
So when it comes to money, you got to be diligent about who you permit to speak into your life. Now, listen, it's okay to be cautious. In fact, it's wise to be cautious. Mm-hmm. All right. But what you want to do is whoever is speaking into your life about your money, they need to be able to show you that they know what they're talking about.
Yeah.
You know, are they living the exact same way you're living?
Right.
And if you're living like a broke person and they're living like a broke person, that's probably not somebody you should be taking financial guidance from.
Yeah.
You should always be looking towards someone else who seems to be where you want to reach.
Right. So we have mentioned this book numerous times on the podcast, and we're going to do it again, The Richest Man in Babylon. There's a part in there where there's a money lender talking to another guy, and he says, advice is one thing that is freely given away, but watch that you take only what is worth having. Mm-hmm. And so anybody and everybody has an opinion about anything and everything. But like you were saying, if somebody's telling you how to manage your finances and they're in the same boat you are, probably don't need to take that advice. You need to you either need to talk to somebody who has done it or someone who is doing it, whatever it is, right? You know, so I want to be a millionaire. This guy's very close to being on track to being a millionaire. Or this is an older person that's retired and they are a millionaire. You need to go talk with them. And talking about, you know, removing yourself from those situations, Dave Ramsey talks about that a lot in his stuff, is when these people are trying to make a switch, you know, he doesn't pull any punches talking about, you know, hey, you're going to have family members you're going to disappoint. You're going to have friends that aren't going to understand. And he says that, you know, prepping people, because the natural tendency is, well, we got to spend this money because it's what everybody's doing. I've got to spend this money for this vacation. I got to spend this money for this holiday because that's what my friends are doing. That's what my families are doing. And Dave Ramsey's prepping you, saying, hey, look, you don't have to do that. If you're gonna make a change, something's got to actually change. And so, yeah.
Yeah. In fact, I would say the gotta part in there is, you're right. You don't gotta go on that vacation. You don't gotta go buy that car just because your buddy or your family member did. But what you gotta do, all right, is you gotta make a decision. Mm-hmm. And you gotta make a decision. I think Dave says it this way: live today like nobody does, so that in the future you can live like nobody does.
Right. Yeah.
So, I tend to agree with that wholeheartedly. This thing about keeping up with the Joneses is severely overrated.
Right.
And is some very bad advice.
Yeah.
Whenever a person wants to do that. I tell you another thing too about your crowd. People who, believe it or not, some of the most generous people that I've ever met in my life are people who have succeeded. All right. And they seem to be the ones who want to teach and want to share their wealth of knowledge to others to help them move forward. I don't find that so much in a circle of folks who are not very ambitious,
right,
or who are the victims. They it's always somebody else's fault that they're where they're at. It's interesting to see that the individuals who want to help you and who have this knowledge they're more than willing to share, they are very selective with it. And your verbiage, the language you use, the thought pattern you utilize, you got to be careful of that too, because if you're hanging around or you're associating with a group of folks who can't seem to make a coherent sentence without cursing throughout their sentences, or without some slang word in it, their vocabulary is one that is lacking. Okay. You find out that if you want to improve that, you've got to get out of that group again and get into some place or another group of people who are going to challenge you with words you don't recognize. Kind of like your buddy Matt Spears, who has been on a couple of our podcasts before, and he brings up these things. I think last time we were together, he used a phrase to describe me, the gap. All right. And then I realized he was insulting me because of my age difference between him and you. So, yeah. So, I like Matt. Matt just needs to understand. He needs to respect his elders. All right. Yeah. That's where Matt's at. Matt's wife is very nice. Matt's got a ways to go. Yeah.
Matt, if you're listening to this, Robert does love you.
Yeah. But you got to watch out for that because truthfully, and again, we just don't, we undervalue how much of an influence our circle has on us. You've got your friend Ed. Mm-hmm. Ed to me is a gold mine of knowledge, and Ed has his particulars. All right, I will say that about Ed, but Ed is a gold mine of knowledge. Mm-hmm. Just looking at him, first time you've seen him, that wouldn't even cross your mind. But 5 minutes into a conversation with him, and you're asking him to take a breath. I need to get a drink of water. You're pouring way too much in me too fast. So, you want to find Eds. Mm-hmm. Gosh, if you can surround yourself with 5 Eds or 5 Matthews for that matter, your future is going to look good.
Yeah.
All right. Your future is going to look real good. And that leads me into the next thing about this is the networks that it creates. Because when you move from your circle into, like for me, for example, I have been known to handpick certain people to build their knowledge up financially. And in doing that, what I've also done is introduce these people to other people who have been successful financially speaking. Mm-hmm. And so it increased their networks. And what you find is that the people who have, and they're successful because they've done what they needed to do to have, they know other people who swim in that same pond. And whenever you go and you're intentional about changing your circle, you fall under the influence and the mentorship of these individuals. If you are not successful in life, if you do not achieve financially what it is you're trying to achieve, it's your own fault.
Bill Gates has a quote. He said, "It's not your fault if you're born poor. It is your fault if you die poor."
Yeah.
So
yeah, it's easy for him to say. I mean, what is he? Trillionaire? Yeah.
I just should have invented the computer and we'd be fine.
Yeah. I mean, just because he did it before I did. Yeah. You know, I was just 1 week behind.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I was going to call mine Large Soft. He was Microsoft. I was going to call mine Large Soft.
Boo.
Yeah.
Boo.
Yeah.
Do we have any boo animations we can make?
Yeah. Yeah, I don't even know what that was. All right. And of course, the other one that I talked to you about, your crowd is energy. Have you ever walked in a room and it's sun shining outside and there's these people in this room and you walk in the room and all of a sudden you just feel drained, tired, emotionally shot. When you find that room,
You don't need to be in it.
my gosh, get out of that room, pull the door shut behind you, lock them people in it, and get away from them.
That's, if you take anything away from this podcast, if there are people who literally they and you know what we're talking about, they physically, mentally, emotionally drain you, that's not a relationship you need to be in.
Yeah, I mean, you know, God bless them, and you love them, but just be gone.
Yeah.
All right. Oh my gosh, sometimes your mom and I will, you know, we go places and you know, we run across people and all that, and there's just some people that are just exhausting. And I know that there are people looking at or hearing this today saying, he is calling the pot black or the kettle black or whatever. I know they feel that way about me, and I'm okay with that. I mean, it is not, listen, you either like me, love me, or cannot stand me. I mean, it's somewhere in that group. There's not really an in-between there. And I know that, and I've come to recognize it, and I acknowledge that's who Robert Templeton is. I get that. But my point that I'm trying to make is I personally have made it my mission in life that if you want to live in the pigsty and the mud hole and just walk around saying, woe is me, then you do it, but you do it somewhere else.
Right.
All right. Don't come in my yard. Don't come around me. Don't bring that junk to me, all that negativity. There was a movie that had Clint Eastwood in it, and who else was it many years ago? Kiefer Sutherland or Donald Sutherland, whatever his name was. And he drove a Sherman tank, and he was like a hippie Sherman tank driver. And I remember he used to say, man, keep all that negativity away from here, like that. I mean, it was a funny movie, but it was old Clint Eastwood war movie. They were trying to rob some gold out of a German bank. Yeah, I know there. So we've got Kelly's Heroes. See, Kelly's Heroes. That's what you look. If you've never seen Kelly's Heroes, go see Kelly Heroes, because my favorite character was the tank driver, because he was all about keeping the negativity away.
That's good.
All right, that was his phrase. Don't bring that negativity here, man. And so, in my mindset, stay away from those people.
Yeah.
You know, that's, you know, we've got folks that we talk to who build you up. Like, you know, we got Bill Edmonds that we talk to all the time. And you remember Steve Cloud.
Yep.
You know, we've got him. You know, you have folks who come in who are valuable assets to helping you grow personally and professionally. And they have knowledge. They have learned how to push the wheel.
Right.
And they've learned the same thing. They would tell you the same thing, that, look, you know, bad influences, do not give them time. When they introduce themselves to you, acknowledge them, but then cut them out of your life.
Yeah.
And that might sound mean, uncaring, unloving, but you know you've only got this one life here on this earth that you live, and you don't have time to mess around with those who are going to be anchors on your ankles, pulling you under when you're trying to swim to shore.
Right.
You got no time for that. So again, yeah, I wanted to bring that today just for whatever reason it was on my mind, that, you know, a lot of what we talk about in the financial management world is you can be successful financially, but you got to change your mindset.
Yeah. Yeah. It's, one of the things we would say is, just do an audit, right? Just take a step back, ask yourself who you're surrounding yourself with. What do they look like? Whatever your goal is, health wise, what does their fitness look like? Financially, what does their situation look like? Do that. And then also taking it a step farther, do an audit on yourself. What are you spending your time thinking about? What are you spending the time, your time focusing on? If you have never read a article about finance, read a book about finance, that's a problem. You've done yourself a disservice. You are not focusing on it. You cannot compare scripture to a finance book, but it is worth mentioning. Renew your mind by studying the Word. What say that scripture?
The transforming and renewing of your mind.
Right.
Gosh,
it's that
Romans.
one. It's in Romans, talking about renewing your mind by focusing on scripture. That's a true principle that you can put into practice. Focus on the things that you want to achieve. Fill your mind with that, and you're slowly going to become that. You're going to naturally gravitate towards other thoughts, other people, stuff like that. So
it doesn't happen overnight.
No.
You gotta be consistent, diligent, intentional. Nothing can change your mind that is going to take you backwards. You're always striving forward. And that's the way you should live. If you're going to be successful in anything in this life, take a look at your crowd. And as I started at the beginning of this podcast, I will predict your future for you. You can predict your own future.
Right.
Look at your crowd. Are they moving, or are they just sagging?
Yeah.
All right. If they're moving and they're moving forward and they have things happening that is going to be beneficial to themselves and society in general, and that's who you're with, that's where you're going to be. But then again, if your group of people are the ones that when you walk in and all the energy is already sapped out of the room and you didn't bring any in yourself, hello to your future.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you have to decide, is that who you want to be?
So let's say somebody's sitting here listening to this. They've never thought about this before, and they do want to make a change. And we're talking about the finance, not necessarily the health or the spiritual right now, but financially, somebody is looking at their circle. They're thinking of the things that they concentrate on, and they want to make a change. What would step one be?
Make an appointment.
There it is. There's the plug. There's the plug. Reach out to us when you do it.
Because remember, you got to have counsel. All right? You don't know what you don't know.
Yeah.
So make the appointment. I'm not saying the appointment's going to solve all the issues, but it's going to be the starting point. And when you have the appointment, you sit down in front of your advisor, and your advisor starts pulling from you your goals, your aspirations, your challenges, your situation. They're able to take a look from a 360-degree vantage point versus you're sitting right in the middle of your woods and you can't see the woods because of the trees. They're able to take a look at that and start clearing a path. So what I'd say very strongly is make the appointment.
Yeah.
Make the appointment. Start there and then move on.
Side note, while we were sitting here talking, the verse we were trying to remember is in Romans 12. Do not be conformed, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. There it is.
I knew it was in Romans.
Took 3 people to figure that out. Now, thank you, Scott. But yeah, no, seriously, if this challenged you, feel free to reach out. If you want to learn more about our thoughts, you can always check out the book that we wrote, Financial Harmony, Personal Fulfillment. If you were to get that book and you enjoyed it, please leave us a review. We'd really appreciate it. But with that, this has been another episode of the My Father Said podcast. I'm Ryan.
I'm Robert.
And we'll see you next time.
The opinions voiced in this video are for general information only and are not specific advice or recommendations for any individual. All performance reference is historical and is no guarantee of future results. All indices are unmanaged and may not be invested into directly. Economic forecasts set forth may not develop as predicted, and there can be no guarantee that strategies promoted will be successful.